If you think men choose women by accident, you're wrong, completely wrong. Carl Jung revealed that behind every choice, behind every attraction, every obsession, there's a hidden psychological force driving it, a force most men don't even know exists but that controls them anyway, and the truth is the reason why some women are chosen, desired, chased while others are ignored has nothing to do with looks, charm or personality the way you think. Jung discovered that it's something much deeper, something hidden, coded inside the unconscious mind of every man. It's not taught in schools, it's not something your father told you, and almost no one dares to talk about it. But once you understand this, you'll never see relationships or women the same way again, because this isn't about tricks, this isn't about manipulation, this is about decoding the silent forces that shape attraction, desire, and even the type of women you are unconsciously programmed to choose, whether that leads you to peace, to happiness, or to absolute chaos. And once you understand this, everything shifts, because this is the part no one ever told you, and yet it secretly runs your life. In this video we're going to break down exactly what Carl Jung revealed about how men unconsciously choose women and why understanding this is not just powerful, it's survival. Stay until the end, because once you hear this you'll never unsee it, and once you understand how this works it becomes impossible not to see it. So let's begin with the first hidden truth Carl Jung uncovered about the female psyche and why it shapes the very way men choose women without even realizing it. 1. The archetype you're actually chasing. You think you're chasing a woman, you're not. You're chasing a story, a symbol, an image burned so deeply into your unconscious mind that you don't even recognize it's there, but it's been guiding your attraction all your life. Carl Jung called this the anima, the feminine archetype that lives inside every man. It's not a fantasy, it's not a metaphor, it's a real psychic force that shapes who you desire, what you tolerate, and even what kind of pain you're willing to endure, all in the name of love. The anima is formed during childhood, your earliest interactions with your mother, your caretakers, the women you admired or feared, all of that energy fused together into one powerful internal image. And here's the trap: every time you meet a woman who triggers that image, your unconscious screams, that's her, but it's not her, it's never really her. You're not seeing the woman in front of you, you're seeing the projection, you're seeing the echo of your own unresolved longing, your own psychic blueprint, your own anima trying to come alive in the outside world. That's why some men fall head over heels for women who treat them poorly, who are emotionally unavailable, or who reflect the very same chaos they swore they'd avoid. It's not logic, it's recognition. The unconscious sees something familiar and it chases it like it's fate. This is why so many men fall for the same type over and over again. It's not because all women are the same, it's because you haven't made the unconscious conscious, you haven't confronted your anima, you haven't asked, why do I feel magnetically pulled to this? What part of me is trying to heal, relive, or rewrite an old emotional story? Carl Jung warned, until you make the unconscious conscious it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This is exactly what happens when a man lives in blind devotion to his anima. He doesn't choose women his wounds choose for him. And the most dangerous part, the more intense the attraction feels, the more likely it's a projection. The more she feels like everything I've been looking for, the more likely she's echoing a part of your psyche that's begging to be integrated, not idealized. Understanding this is the beginning of freedom. It doesn't mean you stop feeling, it means you start seeing, you start differentiating between the woman in front of you and the image inside of you. The man who understands this becomes dangerous not to others but to every unconscious pattern that once controlled him, because from this point on he doesn't chase illusions, he chooses with clarity. 2. Why you're attracted to the wrong women. Let's be brutally honest, you don't always choose women because they're good for you, you choose them because they fit the emotional pattern your nervous system is addicted to. Read that again, you're not choosing consciously, your unconscious mind, your unresolved wounds, your unmet needs, and the emotional blueprint written in your childhood is doing the choosing for you. This is why you've been drawn to women who are emotionally unavailable, women who make you chase, women who give just enough and then pull away, all women who overwhelm you with intensity, drama, and chaos, only to leave you confused, drained, or broken. And you know what's even worse? A part of you likes it, craves it, feeds on it because it feels familiar. Carl Jung explained that the psyche doesn't seek what's logical, it seeks what's familiar, even if that familiarity is painful. Your mind would rather relive a known pattern than step into the uncertainty of something healthier. If you grew up around instability, you unconsciously associate love with instability. If you grew up feeling unseen, you unconsciously crave the woman who is hard to get, emotionally distant, or impossible to fully capture. If you had to fight for attention, affection, or approval, you naturally gravitate toward women who make you prove your worth. It's not love, it's repetition, it's the unconscious trying again and again to resolve the original wound. If I can finally make this type of woman love me, maybe I'll heal what I couldn't heal back then. But it never works because the wound isn't out there, it's inside. And as long as you chase healing through women, you'll keep attracting the exact kind of woman that reopens the wound, not the one who heals it. This is why good, healthy, stable Women often feel boring. Safe women. Women who actually show up, who are emotionally available, who offer peace instead of chaos, can feel less exciting to a man who is unconsciously wired for drama, distance, or rejection, not because there's something wrong with her but because peace feels foreign when all you've ever known is chaos. And the worst part, you'll rationalize it. You'll say things like, I'm just not that attracted, there's no spark, she's too nice. Number, she's not too nice, you're just not familiar with what it feels like to be loved in a way that doesn't hurt. This is what Jung meant when he said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. As long as the wound is in charge, you won't choose women. The wound will. Freedom starts the moment you stop asking why does she act like this and start asking why am I attracted to this. When you ask that question honestly, everything starts to change. 3. The women who trigger your shadow. Let me tell you something most men never realize. The women who hurt you the most are the ones who awaken your shadow the most. This isn't random, it's not bad luck, it's not because all women are the same, it's because certain women, without even knowing, activate the exact part of you that you've been avoiding your whole life. The shadow, as Carl Jung described, is everything about yourself that you've rejected, denied, or buried. The insecurity, the fear, the neediness, the anger, the unhealed pain, the parts of you that you were told directly or indirectly were unacceptable. And here's the brutal truth: when you meet a woman who triggers that shadow, you either become obsessed with her or you lose yourself completely. You can't think straight, you chase, you compromise, you beg, you collapse, you become someone you don't even recognize, all in the name of keeping her attention, her validation, her presence. Not because of love, not because she's the one, but because she's the mirror, the one who reflects back the exact part of your psyche you've spent years trying to avoid. That's why it feels so intense, so magnetic, so impossible to walk away from. It's not her, it's your shadow screaming for your attention. And the hard truth, if you don't know how to deal with your shadow, the relationship becomes a battlefield, a cycle of highs, lows, obsession, rejection, pain, hope, and collapse. This is why so many men stay stuck in toxic dynamics for years, because they think the woman is the problem, but the real war is inside. And look, confronting this isn't easy. It's not something most men were ever taught. That's exactly why I created the SIM method by Jung, a simple daily practice designed to help you free your mind, integrate your shadow, and finally step out of the patterns that have silently controlled your life. In just 5 minutes a day, you'll start doing what most men never even realize they need: facing the parts of yourself that keep choosing chaos, reclaiming the power you've been unconsciously handing over to women, to validation, to your wounds, and finally stepping into the clarity, peace, and self-possession that only comes when the shadow no longer runs your life. If you're ready for that, the link is waiting for you in the pinned comment below, because the truth is, the moment you integrate your shadow, the women who once had power over you lose it completely. Suddenly the games don't work, the manipulation doesn't stick, the chaos isn't seductive anymore. You stop feeling drawn to the wrong women because you've healed the part of yourself that used to chase them. And that's not just freedom, that's power for the woman you want versus the woman you need. There's a brutal truth about attract that almost no man wants to hear, but once you understand it, it will change everything. The woman you want is rarely the woman you actually need, and it's not your fault, it's not a flaw in you, it's how the unconscious mind works. You are programmed not by choice but by experience, programmed by the emotional landscape of your childhood, by the women you were exposed to, by the love you received or didn't, by the attention you had to fight for or the neglect you quietly endured, and over time your psyche stitched together an image. An image of this is what love feels like. If love felt like chaos, if love felt like distance, if love felt like inconsistency, if love felt like you had to prove yourself to earn it, to suffer for it, then that is exactly what your nervous system learned to call attraction. This is why so many men, even smart, successful, self-aware men, keep falling for women who emotionally destroy them, not because they consciously choose it but because the unconscious whispers, this feels familiar, this feels like home. But let's be clear, familiar doesn't mean healthy, familiar doesn't mean right, familiar just means known. The nervous system, the unconscious mind, they crave what's known, even if it hurts, even if it breaks you, even if it drags you into years of emotional chaos. And here's the real tragedy: the women who would actually be good for you don't trigger the same emotional fire. The woman who respects you, who is kind to you, who shows up, who is emotionally available, who doesn't make you chase, prove, or beg, often feels boring, flat, like there's no spark, not because there's anything wrong with her but because peace feels foreign when all you've ever known is war. Your nervous system is calibrated to chase validation, not connection, to fight for approval, not receive love, effortlessly to prove your worth, not rest in your worth. That's why when a woman doesn't Activate your wounds. It feels like something's missing, but the only thing missing is the pain. You mistake the absence of chaos for the absence of love, and unless you see this, unless you become radically honest with yourself, you will sabotage every healthy connection that tries to enter your life. You'll ghost her, you'll lose interest, you'll tell yourself stories like "I'm just not feeling it, she's too nice." The chemistry is not there. Number, the chemistry is not there because the pain is not there. And unless you've done the work to recalibrate what your nervous system associates with love, you will keep craving the woman who triggers your wounds, not the one who could actually heal alongside you. Here's the paradox that most men never escape. The women who make you feel the highest highs are often the same women who will drag you to your lowest lows, because the intensity isn't love, the fire isn't connection, it's the collision of your shadow and your anima, your unhealed parts meeting there. Perfect match in someone who unconsciously mirrors them back to you. Meanwhile, the woman who offers stability, respect, peace feels neutral because she doesn't mirror the wound, she mirrors the man you could become if you were healed. But to the unhealed mind, that feels foreign, almost wrong, because the chaos feels like home. This is why Jung's work is so brutal, so confronting, and so liberating at the same time. It forces you to look in the mirror and ask, am I even attracted to what's good for me, or am I just unconsciously repeating a script I didn't write? And that question, that one realization, is the line between a man who lives his life on repeat and a man who breaks the cycle forever. When you finally understand this, you stop chasing the woman who sets you on fire, because you realize real love isn't supposed to burn, it's supposed to warm, to ground, to build, to grow. And when you finally feel what that's like, you'll wonder how you ever confused chaos with passion, how you ever mistook anxiety for chemistry, how you ever believed that the woman who ignored you, pushed you away, or made you fight for her presence was ever what you truly wanted. Because the truth is, she never was. She was just a mirror, a reflection of the work you still hadn't done. And the day you realize that is the day everything changes forever. 5. When you become immune to her power, there comes a moment in a man's life, if he's lucky, if he's brave, if he's willing, when something finally clicks, when after years of confusion, obsession, pain, and endless emotional games, he opens his eyes and sees reality exactly as it is, not through the lens of his wounds, not through the distorted reflection of his shadow, not through the desperate hunger of his anima, but through clarity. And in that moment, something irreversible happens. He becomes immune to the power that certain women once held over him, immune to the psychological chains that made him chase, beg, suffer, compromise, collapse, and confuse pain with love. This is the moment when the man who was once reactive, desperate, addicted to the highs and lows of emotional chaos becomes something entirely different, something rare, something dangerous, not to others but to every unconscious pattern that used to control him. Because once you truly see the mechanism, once you understand how your psyche projected the anima onto women, how your shadow sought resolution through external relationships, how your nervous system confused instability with passion, you can never unsee it. The spell breaks, the illusion collapses, and what once felt like magnetic, uncontrollable attraction now looks like exactly what it always was, a psychological pattern, a wound searching for resolution, an old emotional script trying once again to repeat itself in hopes that this time the ending will be different. But here's the brutal truth: the ending is never different until you are, as long as the wound remains unhealed, as long as the shadow remains unconscious, as long as the anima remains projected. The story stays the same, the faces change, the names change, but the emotional experience always repeats: the chaos, the chasing, the validation seeking, the emotional starvation followed by small crumbs of affection, the hope, the disappointment, the collapse, over and over again, until the day you finally understand the problem was never her. It was never about her behavior, her unpredictability, her hot and cold games, her emotional unavailability, or her manipulation. Number, the problem was that you gave her power over you. You handed it over the moment you allowed your unconscious mind to choose for you, the moment you believed that the burning sensation of anxiety mixed with desire was love, the moment you mistook the activation of your wounds for the presence of a soulmate. But when a man integrates his shadow, when he withdraws the projection of his anima, when he learns to sit with his own discomfort, his own emptiness, his own unresolved pain, everything changes. Suddenly the woman who once made him feel like he couldn't breathe without her becomes just a woman no different from any other. The pedestal collapses, the fantasy evaporates, the illusion dissolves into dust. He no longer looks at her through the eyes of a wounded child searching for his mother. He no longer craves her validation like oxygen. He no longer needs her approval to feel worthy, seen, or whole, because now he is whole, not because of her, not because she stayed, not because she finally gave him what he wanted, but because he gave it to himself because he realized often through pain, through brutal self-confrontation, through the collapse of every fantasy he once believed, that the love he was chasing out there was the love he had been denying himself all along. And here's what's even more powerful: when you become immune to her power, when the projection is gone, when the shadow is integrated, when the anima is no longer running the show, something fascinating happens. You stop attracting the women who feed on that power, the emotionally unavailable ones, the ones who play games, the ones who bait you with affection and then withdraw it to keep you chasing. They sense it, they feel it, they know often without words that you're no longer the man who will kneel at the altar of their validation, that you're no longer the man whose nervous system can be hijacked by a perfectly timed silence, by a withdrawal of affection, by a cold glance, by a breadcrumb of attention designed to keep you hooked to them. You become unplayable, untouchable, uncontrollable, and it's not because you've become cold, closed, or avoidant. On the contrary, you've simply become sovereign, free, whole. You no longer confuse love with anxiety. You no longer confuse passion with pain. You no longer confuse desire with desperation. Instead, you begin to choose from clarity, from presence, from grounded awareness, from the understanding that love, real love, doesn't demand that you abandon yourself to receive it. That connection, real connection, doesn't require you to sacrifice your dignity, your sanity, or your peace. And when you walk into the world as that man, the man who no longer hands his power to anyone, everything changes, not just in your relationships but in your presence, your energy, your boundaries, your standards, the way you command respect without saying a word, the way chaos no longer seduces you, the way manipulation no longer sticks to you, because the parts of you that once needed to be manipulated no longer exist. You've outgrown them. You've burned the old script. You've walked out of the psychological prison you didn't even realize you were living in for years. And the irony, the very women who once played the games, the ones who kept you chasing, doubting, questioning yourself, suddenly want your attention, suddenly, as they feel drawn to the man you've become. But now you see it for what it is. Now you understand that what once felt like magic was just trauma disguised as attraction. Now you understand that the real power was never in their hands. It was always in yours, you just hadn't claimed it yet. And when you do, when you finally reclaim everything you once outsourced to validation, to approval, to the illusion of love wrapped in chaos, you become untouchable. You become a man who doesn't chase, who doesn't collapse, who doesn't beg, who doesn't compromise his soul for scraps of attention. You become the man who walks into any room, any relationship, any situation, knowing nothing outside of me controls me anymore, nothing ever again. There comes a day in every man's life when he has to decide if he will keep living as a prisoner of his unconscious mind, or if he's finally ready to wake up. A day when he looks back at the years he wasted chasing the wrong women, confusing anxiety for love, calling chaos passion, and thinking that her validation was the missing piece that would finally make him feel whole. But it never did. It never worked. No matter how much you chased, no matter how much you proved yourself, no matter how many times you tried to convince her to choose you, to stay, to love you the way you needed, the story always ended the same: the collapse, the disappointment, the realization that the love you were looking for in her was never hers to give, it was always yours. This is the brutal, liberating, unescapable truth that Carl Jung tried to show the world, the truth that no one wants to talk about because it forces you to confront the darkest corners of yourself. It forces you to admit that it was never really about her, it was about you. About the boy inside you who never felt enough, about the man who spent years trying to solve an emotional puzzle that wasn't his fault but became his responsibility, about the shadow you avoided, the anima you projected, the emptiness you tried to fill with attention, affection, and moments of borrowed validation that never lasted. And yet once you see it, once you really see it, something shifts forever. The fantasy dies, the spell breaks, the illusion burns to the ground, and in its place clarity, silence, power, because now you finally understand that the real battle was never out there. It was never about the women who ignored you, who manipulated you, who played the game of hot and cold until you were on your knees. It was about the parts of yourself that allowed it, the parts that craved it, the parts that confused pain with love and thought that suffering was the price you had to pay to be worthy of affection. But not anymore, because the day you finally see the truth is the day you stop playing, you stop chasing, you stop collapsing into versions of yourself that were never truly you, versions sculpted by wounds, by childhood memories, by unspoken fears and unmet needs. The day you see the truth is the day you reclaim everything you once handed over, your power, your presence, your peace, your clarity, your dignity. And from that day forward you become untouchable, not because you don't feel, not because you become cold or disconnected. Number you feel everything, you just no longer confuse the rush of chaos with the presence of love. You no longer mistake emotional anxiety for chemistry. You no longer think that the person who triggers your deepest wounds is your soulmate. You no longer believe that love has to be something you earn through suffering. You stop looking for yourself in the eyes of women who can't see you. You stop begging for crumbs from tables you were never meant to sit at. You stop collapsing into cycles of validation, seeking that leave you empty every single time because now you know the love you were searching for was never out there. It was always you. It was always waiting for you to remember. And when you remember, when you reclaim it, when you become the man who no longer gives his power away to anyone or anything outside of himself, the world changes. The way you move changes, the way you speak changes, the way you are perceived changes, because now you are no longer the boy chasing his worth. You are the man who walks into the world already knowing who he is, already knowing what he deserves, already knowing that nothing and no one can give him what he hasn't already given himself. And the women who once made you collapse, who once controlled your emotions with a glance, with silence, with withdrawal, with games, they lose their power completely, because the part of you that once needed them to feel whole no longer exists. It's dead, buried, gone, and in its place, and a man, a sovereign man, a man who doesn't chase love but chooses it, a man who doesn't beg for validation but walks with self-respect, a man who doesn't get pulled into the gravitational field of someone else's chaos because he's too anchored in his own presence. This is the man who no longer fears being alone, because he knows that solitude is not a punishment, it's a privilege, a sacred space where he becomes more of himself, where he refines, elevates, sharpens, and prepares himself for the life, the love, the purpose that actually aligns with his worth. The man who understands this no longer tolerates half love, almost love, conditional love. He no longer bargains with his dignity in exchange for affection. He no longer plays games where the prize is his own self-abandonment, because now he knows, and once you know, you can't unknow it. Once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. Once the truth is clear, the game is over forever. And the freedom that comes with that real, it's not just freedom from her, it's freedom from every false story you've ever believed about yourself, about love, about worth, about what it means to be a man. And that is the moment you never go back, the moment the old version of you dies and the man you were always meant to be finally comes alive.